Despite the absence of the concrete jungle, this area is still part of the city. 2/3 of Beijing consists of sparsely populated mountainous areas. Deep within them are the headwaters of several rivers. The Chaobai River, the Yongding River, and the Northern Grand Canal intersect and converge into 50,000 hectares of wetlands in the city. Because fewer people exist here, animals on the outskirts have more opportunities to share nature's gifts with humans. But these opportunities are decreasing as the city continues to expand. At the border of civilization, the relationship between humans and wild animals has evolved from hostility and exploitation into coexistence. We're learning to adapt to each other's presence because we have shared and will continue to share this land. Most restaurants in Shudu town on the Juma River are closed in winter. But Mr. Tsai's restaurant continues to attract a steady stream of customers. It has been in operation for over 20 years, and it's different from the others because its customers in winter are not tourists. The Juma River in front of the restaurant emerges from the Taihang Mountains, creating steep cliffs and alluvial deposits. This unique area is home to an extraordinary bird species, the black stork. With a population of just over 1,000, it's as rare as the giant panda in China. The water here is less than 40 centimeters deep, so they don't have to get their feathers wet while foraging. The cliffs are ideal for them to rest and raise their young. This rare karst landscape in northern China is a perfect habitat for the black stork in the wild, but it has other functions for humans. Since the 1980s, roads and hotels have been built in Shudu, turning mountain villages into tourist attractions and changing these birds' lives. The fish in the shallow water, once food for the storks, are now consumed by tourists. In winter, after a year of fishing, the river is almost fished out. The storks have only two options: starve here or move away. The shoal under the Liudu Bridge in front of Tsai's restaurant is a perfect feeding ground for these birds. Mr. Tsai has been their neighbour for 20 years.
我从小这儿长大的，小时候就看这种鸟。你要不咱说农村的话，就是以前逃荒要饭，怎么回事？老家没得吃了，就得拉家带口就得走。你像黑鹳也一样，你这儿没吃的了，一展翅膀飞走了，那要吃的去哪儿？想法让它过冬嘛。其实鸟啊，它也有感情，它都通灵性。你对它好啊，它就比较亲近你。所以怎么着，无论如何，今年也得想办法，把这鸟得留着。
Mr. Tsai is only one of many people who care about these birds. Wu Xiushan, a zookeeper, is also a wildlife rescue volunteer. Feeding wild animals scientifically and effectively is a particular challenge. Wu Xiushan is still determining if his method will work.
野生动物呢，我们首先呢要搞清楚它平时习惯性的在哪儿觅食。8度、6度、7度是它经常来觅食的地儿。从本意上呢，不要过多的干扰它那个自然生活规律，这样呢就让黑鹳感觉呢不是说，食物来了像我们点个外卖似的那么容易，还是更希望它去按照自然的生活规律去觅食。
Today is their first feeding attempt. The water area isn't big, but 200 pounds of loach vanish instantly among the rocks underwater in the open and intricate wilderness. Where will the fish go? Will the black storks come? Can they find the fish? Everything is uncertain. The storks are probably frightened by the unexpected visit. They haven't arrived. Nevertheless, the fishing continues.
这个电线杆底下这个竹竿就是这个电鱼工具的那个插到水里和捞鱼的部分，尤其一些小鱼，就基本上就属于那种断子绝孙的状态了，是对这个鱼类资源破坏是最严重的一种方式。
They have to suspend their feeding attempt until they find a more effective way. Like the black storks, other animals in the mountains of Beijing are severely threatened by hunger and cold. The threat is particularly grave for the macaques. They prefer the warm and humid climate of southern China, but now they face a winter in Beijing with temperatures more than 10 degrees below zero. Born in the south, they were forced to leave their hometown and shipped to Beijing as pets for performances, though now they're free. These former animal performers have become masters of the hill. They have established families and colonies and have raised their young. The macaques haven't adapted to the northern winter, but have their own ways of coping with it. They roam the villages, feeding on the villagers' stocks of corn and cabbage. The cinereous vulture also relies on humans for food. They are the largest bird of prey in Beijing. The vultures have found the poultry discarded by farmers. They have sharp eyes, but their claws are surprisingly small and out of proportion to their bodies, explaining why vultures rarely attack live animals. This feast is so out of control, yet the vultures remain silent. These birds rarely call. Deep in the mountains of western Beijing, these giant birds at the top of the food chain silently enjoy their feast. The city sprawl may sometimes provide opportunities for animals. Still, their instincts and habits tell them that humans are a threat. To get the black storks to drop their guard, Wu Xiushan decides to try a new approach.
时间嘛，你要投的话，黑鹳一般是早晨天不亮，说6点多呀、7点左右，它就下来觅食。如果我要投的话，我就是夜里边投。夜里边谁也不知道，省着让人发现了，或者啊你投了让人给逮走了。好多放生的就是前面投后边逮。
By releasing the fish at night, they avoid disturbing the black storks, and electro fishermen will not find the released fish. The remaining fish are kept in the restaurant's pond and released daily into the river, hoping the storks will become accustomed to foraging here.
非常的冷，希望明天那个黑鹳有个好胃口吧。
Now they have to wait and see. In the morning, a small flock of black storks comes to the river. Their strategy has worked.
行，半小时吃饱了。哎呦，他给我表演飞板。我的天，我太棒了！哎呀呀呀，就在我身边，在我这儿。哦，太棒！你看，这就是我做前期工作做的成效哈。
They have been feeding the birds for more than 2 months. The black storks come here daily for fish and spend significantly less time searching for food. This indicates that they can soon find enough food before returning to the cliffs, where they are farther away from humans and therefore safer. The birds have more access to food as the weather warms up after the Lunar New Year holiday. This visit is Wu Xiushan's last feeding trip to Shudu this winter.
多好的地方！最起码取消这个小河鱼这道菜，如果要真的能落实的话，可能会很好。
各个饭馆贴上哈，说这大家不点这道鱼，
对，
然后呢就相当于没有市场。
这个专门是做黑鹳鱼，这个您以前见没见过？没有。
Tsai has prepared Lunar New Year gifts for every customer. The customers have also brought presents, albeit for the black storks.
也祝你新年快乐！
谢谢吴老师，
我们走了。现在当务之急是保持这个种群能够在这儿能够生活下去。如果我们不投喂呢，很可能这个种群就在这儿消失了。
The mountains that surround Beijing on 3 sides form a barrier between the animals and the city. While complete isolation of the two is impossible, the mountains provide some protection for the more vulnerable animals. Wetlands are another type of landscape that nurture city animals in a more complex and hidden way. Wetlands are home to a wide variety of animals. If you look closely, you can find many animals, even in a seemingly unremarkable patch of reeds. The Wild Duck Lake Nature Reserve is Beijing's largest and most biodiverse wetland. More than 200 bird species can be spotted here throughout the year. Every year, tens of thousands of migratory birds come to Wild Duck Lake. Some take a short rest before continuing their journey, while others live here all year round. A golden eagle reigns over this part of the sky. The golden eagle is the indisputable king, with a 2-meter wingspan and strong, razor-sharp claws. Searching for prey, it does not know that it is probably asking for trouble, because it has entered the territory of a magpie. Five times larger than the magpie, it has every reason to ignore the latter's protest. For the magpie, tolerating the eagle's provocation makes perfect sense, given their vast size difference and the dreadful consequence if it fights. But it refuses to submit and decides to protect its territory. It's a law of nature that the strong feed on the weak. This time, however, it has been proven wrong. This magpie is a mother who needs to protect her young. Like this mother magpie, other animals in the wetlands are busy breeding. These birds are black-winged stilts. Young stilts are busy in the shallow water. Their competition to find a mate is far from cruel, and they're satisfied to drive away the rival. While the courtship of black-winged stilts is visually pleasing, like other animals, the breeding process is never as pleasant and romantic as it appears. Instead, it's long and arduous. However, that is the ultimate goal of survival. Animals have different strategies for raising their young. Many water birds build their nests covertly among the reeds. But this expectant mother has taken a different approach. She understands that the most dangerous place can also be the safest. A wind farm is built on the breezy southern shore of the Guanting Reservoir. Its openness offers clear visibility, enabling the stilt to detect any potential threat. Thanks to human activity, dangerous predators are kept away from this area. Her courage and wisdom pay off. A month later, 3 baby stilts safely hatch. The mother promptly takes her young into the water. She needs to teach them how to survive in the city. This is another species of bird that resorts to a more unique approach. Their cuckoo calls are often heard in summer, but the birds themselves are rarely seen. They're common cuckoos. This is a common baby cuckoo, but this is not its nest, and the bird feeding it is not its mother. It's an oriental reed warbler. This is not an accident, but a carefully planned invasion by the common cuckoo and her young. It all began a month ago when the pregnant cuckoo laid her egg in the warbler's nest while the warbler was away. Surprisingly, the baby cuckoo starts killing its nestmates as soon as it hatches. It pushes all the baby warblers out of the nest, eliminating the competition. Even more surprising is the reaction of the mother warbler. She starts to feed the murderer of her young. Her instinct to breed is so strong that she has no other choice. The onlooking cuckoo has succeeded in her plot. She doesn't need to hatch or feed her offspring, since she can count on the warbler to do so. Although, in a sense, she has lost her child. But that is the fate of animals. Nature operates without a moral compass. Competition and species survival comes first. The wild and the city sound disconnected to humans, but for animals they're inseparable. Many wetland animals live on the fringes of cities. Farmlands provide food for city dwellers, but are also essential for the survival of some animals. However, the situation could change. This year, the reservoir's water level has risen by 3 meters. This poses an unexpected, deadly threat to a large flock of cranes 70 kilometers away. The common crane is one of the 3 crane species found in Beijing. They migrate from the north to spend the winter in this city. The expansive cornfields have been harvested, but the harvesters inevitably leave some corn behind. Common cranes often come to the fields in families to forage. However, food is scarce. Ultimately, there are always cranes too weak from starvation to return to their homeland with the others. To make things worse, 70 kilometers away, the farmland near the reservoir has been flooded for water storage, forcing another flock of common cranes that used to winter there to arrive in Yanqing. The farmlands here cannot support thousands of cranes. This has raised concerns among those in the reserve.
我这投石就投在这还是最好的。你看那边有路了，那边有路了，就让它踏踏实实的这修。那有回合，这位置。
那它夜宿点实际上就一个。
哎，大部分夜宿点都奔这儿去。夜宿点不，他现在这个只要人家这哈钓鱼的意思。
Through repeated observation, they find out when and where the cranes often forage and rest.
好了就没了。
我看他带着皮儿了，他有。
The Reserve and Rescue Centre buy a truckload of corn from the locals to help the cranes survive the winter.
朋友，大哥，
再往北边那边走点，撒开的把都撒一对儿，北边那几家是最好了。
The proud cranes don't immediately accept their offerings. As night falls, the crane families gather in a large flock and fly to the centre of the frozen reservoir. They huddle together on the open ice and keep warm by sharing their body heat against the cold wind that blows at minus 30 degrees Celsius. The ice appears solid, but is so thin in the centre that it's sometimes blown away by gusts, exposing the water. This makes it difficult for anyone to approach the cranes. In this way, the timid cranes can sleep peacefully at night. After a week, a few brave cranes start to approach the corn. Once they make sure it's safe, the rest of the flock finally come. Three months later, the ice has melted away. It's time for the cranes to migrate. Beijing's wilderness is filled with unfurling buds and bursting blossoms. Among the hundreds of animal species that thrive in the wild, none are as crucial as the honeybee. Humans are well acquainted with these insects. With a strict hierarchy and division of labour, they work and live in their complex honeycombs. Honeybees are also skilled chemists. Worker bees collect nectar and ferment it to get rid of excessive water. The indigestible polysaccharides decompose to make honey for themselves and other animals. The honey serves as a link between these small, inconspicuous insects and humans. The importance of honeybees goes even further because a fantastic symbiotic relationship has developed between these bees and plants in their evolution. By collecting pollen with their legs to feed their larvae, worker bees also transfer pollen between plants to help them reproduce. It is speculated that if honeybees disappeared from the earth, humans would survive only 4 years, as plants would fail to produce. We would be left without the essential ecosystem necessary for our existence. Phenomenal accomplishments often go unnoticed. Now is the busiest time of year for honeybees, and Shi Guangfan, a beekeeper, they follow the flowers. As the temperature rises, they migrate from Beijing's inner suburbs to the outer suburbs. The watermelon is blooming, so Shi Guangfan sends some of his bees to the nearby greenhouses. The bees take over the tasks typically performed by humans. The watermelon flowers pollinated by honeybees produce bigger and better melons. Shi Guangfan and his family live in their truck and tent every spring and summer. Life is hard, but simple.
我们的菜都是朋友送来的，他们知道我们缺什么就给我们送过来什么。我们就是从来到北京养蜂和他们认识的。
These bees enjoy a more comfortable life than their counterparts in the wild. When flowers are scarce or water is in short supply, they can rely on Shi Guangfan to provide for them. The honeybees have made significant progress by July, but their work isn't over yet. The flowers in the grasslands are now in full bloom, and it's time for the bees to say goodbye to Beijing. Before they leave, there is one more important task: harvesting watermelons. Every year, Shi and his bees share the watermelons as a reward for their joint efforts. The watermelons will soon make their way to supermarkets and dining tables in the city, while the beekeeper and his bees embark on a new journey. In the wilderness at the foot of the Great Wall, there is a small mound. Eroded by wind and sand, it is hardly recognizable. But the locals know its story. Legend says it is a beacon tower that is more than 600 years old. Perhaps no one knows more about this ancient relic than this family of little owls. They have made the dilapidated structure their home. The beacon tower is surrounded by farmland on 4 sides, with an ample and easily accessible supply of insects and mice. This is the feeding ground for the little owls. The 4 little owls are fledged and ready to leave the nest. They'll probably never forget this night. Before they set out on their own, their mother prepares a final meal for them at the beacon tower. The strongest of them takes the lead, while the smallest eats up the remaining food as usual. Young owls must only walk before they master the art of flying. Carefully, they hop to the top of the tower. One by one, they leap into the darkness. The smallest is still hesitating. Perhaps it didn't get enough to eat. Finally, it gathers its courage. When the sun rises, the beacon tower falls silent again. Next year, it will welcome these nocturnal birds again. Those living in the suburbs have more opportunities to encounter rare animals than those in urban areas. Wang Shenfu's farm sits at the foot of a mountain along the bank of the Chaohe River in the lower reaches of the Miyun Reservoir. Every morning, he opens the gate of the hen house, allowing his chickens to forage in the forest. Lately, he has discovered chicken carcasses and feathers around the area. An unwelcome visitor has been visiting his farm.
不会的，耗子不会下这么大的功夫，它打这个洞来。哦，然后你看这个地方，这个土是新搞出来的。
Growing up in the countryside, Wang Shenfu is familiar with the little creatures in the mountains. He soon finds traces of some.
你看这块地啊，刚旋耕过，比较松软。这个有动物的话呢，在上面行走的这个脚印儿。
In search of evidence, we wait for the thief where it's likely to come. At midnight, it shows up. A vigilant hog badger. These creatures are very timid and usually stay away from humans.
我看他昨天是进去了，那儿有一个这个像獾的脚印儿，这个印子，实际上这不是鸡脚印儿。你看这个。
It's unusual and risky for a badger to steal chickens from the farm. Wang Shunfu finds it hard to understand.
就在前面这儿就有一个獾洞，他在这地方住了已经有4、5年了，这我们也没有抓过他。他现在的话，离那个鸡舍又近，可能是这近水楼台，抓起比较方便了。
A complex badger burrow can be more than 100 years old, passed down with the building effort of generations. Wang Shunfu suspects that this wild neighbor, who he has not seen in the past several years, is probably in serious trouble.
因为我觉得我们跟这群獾的话相安共处啊，因为也4、5年了。前几年呢，没有发现他们抓鸡，它也许是怀孕了，生了小獾了，都有可能。
Wang Shunfu has no intention of stopping the badger. He believes that once its situation improves, it will likely stop stealing his chickens.
其实你要说这个损失大嘛，我觉得也应该不算特别大。你养个猫、养个狗、养个宠物，这个消费它也不低。想开点，自我安慰就相当于得了，就算它，就像我们养的宠物了。想想的话呢，也挺好玩的。
The badger doesn't reject the kindness of Wang Shunfu. It gets 2 chickens every day as a regular meal. Living with the badger isn't easy, but it allows Wang Shunfu to get to know his longtime wild neighbor.
因为从农村从小长大的嘛，我觉得它就是组成了我们的生活，就觉得这些东西是存在着，给我们很多乐趣。等我们长大之后，发现这些东西呢越来越少了，就觉得好像这个生活呀失去了好多。
He believes that the land that has nurtured him belongs to him, but also to the crops, trees, badgers, and all the animals that call it home. With half of the world's population living in carefully constructed urban environments, it can be hard to realize how easily we can lose our connection with nature. Fortunately, we are not alone. Our animal neighbors have always shared the space with us. They have never left us, but it's not out of affection. Perhaps it's because we have encroached upon their territory. The crew travelled to Wild Duck Lake, 100 kilometers from downtown Beijing, to capture footage of the cranes surviving in extreme cold. With the temperature reaching nearly minus 30 degrees Celsius, the filming equipment failed to work properly.
上面现在全是冰雪。
就回不来了，飞得过去的时候，那个风把这个镜头给吹得死了，就短路了，然后那镜头耷拉了，就那样了。
To get a close-up of the cranes on the ice at night, the camera crew must place their compact cameras where the birds might spend the night. But just one misstep and they could fall into the lake.
那冰面那么大，整个官厅水库。我们只有5个机器，篝火要混到鹤群当中去。只要混到1次，10天只要混进1次就 OK。
The camera crew didn't get the shot they wanted. Fortunately, one of their cameras captured the flock of cranes as they landed to forage. Our crew has lived alongside the animals for the past 2 years, doing our best to get close to them despite extreme altitude and temperature. We have endured hardships with the animals and shared their joy and sorrow through their ups and downs. We believe this is the only way to truly understand animals and gain insight into their lives. Humans and animals are not so different. We all need to battle for survival and raise children. We all endure hardships and ultimately face inevitable death. But animals face greater challenges, and they are tougher than we realize. It's hard to convey this realization fully. Luckily, all the animals featured in the film can be found in our surroundings. Look and listen carefully. You won't miss them.